daughter Savannah and I, who are also in the movie. So anyway, I hope everybody will have a look and also share with your communities. We'd love for folks to be aware of this and also hopefully keep spreading the movement, because I know a lot of parents in other communities have reached out with interest. Thank you.
Great. How does it feel to be a movie star?
It feels really, really weird. It feels, I don't know about movie star. Subject of documentary is actually more like it. It's a very strange.
Under the microscope.
Yeah, it's weird.
I'm looking forward to seeing it. So
Yeah,
and I just wanted to let people know too that on May 3rd, and we don't have the flyer yet, but once I get it, I'll send it out to everybody. But Dr. Alicia Farrell is going to be here, well, virtually, and doing a presentation on how to talk to your kids or how to prevent substance misuse, and then also communication tips for your kids, just fostering resiliency. So it's going to hit a lot of different topics. And I don't know, some of you may be familiar with her. She's wonderful. She just did a series with the Connecticut Clearinghouse back in February or March, and it was one of her topics. So we'd like to bring that to Greenwich locally, but I'm going to open it up to other communities as well. So yeah, she's great. So so that will be there. And then Greenwich is participating in the Drug Take Back Day, and I think we're going to talk about that later on. But so we will have that, and so I think that's it.
Ellen, what was the date again for that though, the talk?
For Alicia Farrell is Monday, May 3rd at 7 o'clock.
Anyone else?
I guess because I haven't done an announcement other than one quick one in Norwalk yet, but I'm doing a QPR on the 22nd from 4:30 to 6 p.m. So that's for the general public. I think, we're probably talking about the fact that we're really trying to get EMS trained in suicide prevention modalities. But I'll send or Giovanna and Danielle will send the flyer out to you guys if anyone wants to help promote that.
Sorry, is that April? You said April 22nd, Margaret?
Yeah. I didn't get the post together until yesterday, so I have to blast it more.
Worries.
And everyone should see in the next, hopefully, week or so, we'll be, as the hub, sending out dates of upcoming QPR trainings for the community at large as well. So if you're looking, if your coalition is looking for to be trained in gatekeeper training, they're welcome to attend as well. But our focus is really on EMS folks. So anyone that's around your table that you know of, please send them the flyer as well and encourage them to attend. I know Daniela has been working hard with the mini grant that we do hold, and there has been concern with the EMS folks in not being able to really have self-care throughout this pandemic, and 18 months of just work. It's been a little bit difficult trying to get these trainings on the books, but I'm hoping with encouragement from all of you, you will be able to get them to the training.
Giovanna, I just realized I should make another announcement. So hopefully everyone's familiar with turningpointct.org, which is the online youth and young adult peer support around mental wellness, completely created by and for teens and young adults in Connecticut. And that project is something I've been sort of privileged to be the director of since the old Regional Mental Health Board days. So the announcements in particular are, as of December 1st, the project moved over to positive directions. So I'm still the project director. When you have questions and comments, you can certainly reach out to me. Ella Moore is the current young adult project coordinator and peer leader. She's 22. She's really amazing. And a couple of things you guys should know for the young people that you work with. So number one, during COVID, we've pivoted. Turning Point CT was always a place that people could just use as a digital platform, right? Kids could share their stories, they could share videos, they can upload resources to the map, they can go look at other people's stuff. We have started offering regular online events because kids were so disconnected. So at the moment, there's one teen social event per month and one young adult social event per month. And often those are actually like activities, like it's an art project or something. So those are offered through Turning Point CT. In addition, they started a mental health kind of advocates group that meets twice a month. So again, teens and young adults who are into that, like they can find all this information on the website, turningpointct.org, but think about who in maybe your youth groups would want to be connecting to any of that. They have launched a new quarterly sort of e-magazine called the Turning Point CT Collective. The first one came out in December. Unbelievable amounts of art and poetry and writing, all like really personal stuff that kids are sharing, really great. And the next one is going to come out for May as Mental Health Month. And right now there is an ask that's out there. So the kids that you know, or college students you know who might want to contribute to this newsletter, whether it's art or writing, they can do that. So lots of options for you guys to be aware of. In addition, they've developed a distress tolerance workshop that's peer-led from the personal lived experience perspective, but also from the perspective that, you know, we train these guys in peer support, and also they've had like their DBT and everything else. So the distress tolerance workshop was initially developed for a young adult audience. I've worked with them. We're turning it into an hour and a half or slightly shorter project for teens. We're going to be doing it in a health class in Norwalk. We're going to do it for a temple on the Fairfield Bridgeport line. And then they're going to start offering it online. So we're really trying to target the extreme distress that a lot of our teens and young adults are feeling and let them sort of learn, share skills with each other and help them through that. And so I know I'm talking about it a lot, but like these are really resources for prevention coalitions, right? Around mental health and stress and all that among teens and young adults, and substance use. And so the final announcement is that Ali Kernan just rejoined the team. Most of you know her, and she's full-time. She started last week on April Fool's Day. And it's a new kind of amendment to our DMIS contract where she actually is going to be playing a kind of a different role as sort of a consultant / advisor to young adult programs that are run by DMIS, DCF, and CSSD to help them do a better job providing peer support to young people. And she's going to be doing sort of policy program kind of work and then feeding it back through Turning Point, like podcasts and whatever. But we built into her contract that she will be available for a certain number of just like, we haven't decided how it's going to work, but she's going to be available for just like peer support on call hours, a few hours a week. So if you have kids that really are like, you know, they're not talking to anyone and they're not in therapy and you think they need something, they'd be able to call her or drop into a room. Haven't decided how it's going to work. May have to be scheduled depending on demand, but that's just yet another option. You guys who know her, she can get anyone to talk. She's just incredibly genuine and enthusiastic and has terrific skills as a recovery coach and an RSS and a smart recovery facilitator.
Margaret, if you don't mind, any flyer or anything like that that you do have, if you can send it to me, because I could have sworn I don't recall about the committee or the meeting that you guys have that Ella has. So these are some updates that I'd like to share with the region and get that out there.
I just had her send me the latest flyers yesterday so that we could share them because I was realizing they weren't. Yeah, it's going out through the Turning Point social media and not necessarily to the hub. So I will get those to you. And we're trying to come up with an elevator speech for what Allie's role is, because it's actually got, if you looked at the job description, it's got several buckets. So I'll get you something about how you can use her when we have that.
Yeah.
Just wanted to give some feedback. I sent out the hub's latest newsletter. I send them out usually to my coalition. And I got a response back from somebody who works in one of the private schools in Greenwich, and she has now signed up for your newsletter independent, so she'll get those, which is great. But she said that she uses all those resources to teach her health classes. Like that's what her go-to is. So I just wanted you guys to know it's really a great resource and people are using it. So
Awesome.
Awesome.
We definitely like that feedback. And I'm glad that people are opening them, clicking on them, all that good stuff. There's actually pretty high percentage rate from our algorithm. 26% of people that that receive our newsletter clicks on it and actually goes through it. So that's a high percentage for any nonprofit. It's above the normal clicking rate from what I was told. So that's really exciting, but I'm glad. Thank you. And please share our newsletter and ask people to subscribe. That would be really helpful. Thank you for that feedback.
Ellen, can I ask you, because it's funny, I have been trying to get our coalition members to sign up versus forwarding it, because you know how when you forward it, sometimes it looks weird, right?
yeah.
Did anybody have any feedback on how, and I mean, Javon and I used to deal with this all the time when I was there, right? Like, do you guys find that if you forward it, looks acceptable enough, or do people, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's working for you is really the takeaway.
Yeah, I mean, she went to the bottom and subscribed herself. I think what I did was in one of the times that I forwarded, I did say to them at the bottom of the newsletter is a subscription button.
Mm.
So click on that if you'd like to receive their emails directly or something like that. So,
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough trying to get people to subscribe. I didn't realize. It's like, you just put your email in there.
You know, at the top of the meeting, we're like, you have a minute now where we're going to sit and watch you. Subscribe.
I know, I can't do that.
The problem is people are afraid, once you've subscribed, you can't ever get unsubscribed. And I don't mean to your letter. I just mean people have had such a bad experience in general with that. Maybe that's some of the hesitation.
Yeah, I didn't think of it that way. I still have emails that I unsubscribe to and I still get them. So yeah, that
Exactly.
makes total sense. Mhm.
Once they realize how valuable it is, maybe they'll subscribe.
Before we move on, I completely forgot. I just wanted to let everyone know that this meeting actually is recorded. And if that's okay with everyone, this is my first time using Zoom. We usually use Ring Central, so I'm still kind of getting used to everything. Very exciting day. Next, I'm just gonna launch a poll. If you could just either hit yes or no if you have an actual youth committee. We're just trying to collect some data and figure out who does, because we're not sure.
And if you don't necessarily facilitate one or oversee it, if your town does have one that you work with, that would be a yes as well.
What if you have student representatives who attend? Would that count? I already answered, so I don't know how to undo my answer, but we do have interaction with high school students. It's not really a committee though. I don't know how you're.
I would include that because they're still participating.
Okay. Well, then I don't know how to retract my answer, but we can figure that out later, I guess.
Okay, that's okay. Thank you. Okay, I think everyone answered. Oops. Okay, sorry about that. We were gonna have Austin present, but he is not here at the moment, so he may join later. If so, we'll go back to that. Next, I just wanted to remind you guys of a few due date reminders. Demographic forms are due by next Friday, I believe, April 15th. I know some of you have already sent them to me and Giovanna, but you can continue to do so. The final report is due July 31st. And I also wanted to just mention our LPC private resource page. If you go to the hubct.info/LPC resources, there's a ton of resources for you all there that you can download, watch videos even. So even for the demographic forms, you can find them there. And there's video and an example of how to fill out and complete those forms. Next is National Prevention Week in May. We would just like to know if your town is going to be participating in either. Depending on your answer, I will follow up with you. Yes, Giovanna?
Sorry, Danielle. I didn't want to interrupt, and I'm trying to raise my hand like I was back in class. Can you just address the question that Kirsten asked as well, just in case others may have had that same thought or question?
What is the question? Sorry, is it in the chat?
So Kirsten from Trumbull asked a question about the demographic forms and about a financial report. So everyone understands that the demographic, it's only the demographic forms for the quarter, okay? From December to April 15th, because you already submitted your demographic forms from September to December, okay? No financial report needs to be given, no quarter report or anything like that. The reason why we're asking for the demographic forms is because impact is cringe, it's horrible, and instead of at the end of your contract, at the end of the fiscal year, instead of me doing demographic forms for all 14 towns, I'm able to break it up and put it into the system in a different way, which helps me out instead of bombarding me with all of those demographic forms. Now, if you did not do anything in this past quarter, you're not sending me anything then, right? You're not going to send anything. You don't need to respond. You don't need to send me an email or anything. It's just a friendly reminder just to make sure that you have those demographic forms. Demographic forms are the events that you have that you've used the LPC dollars to complete that event. That's all.
Anyone else have any other questions about the demographic forms? Okay. Back to National Prevention Week and May. National Prevention Week is the week of May 9th to the 15th this year. And May is Mental Health Awareness Month. We'd just like to know if your town is participating and doing anything, and if so, please just send it our way so we can forward it. We are looking to do a calendar for the month with everything that everyone's doing, and it'll be from a local, regional level to even throughout the state if it's online and free and available to everyone. The National Prevention Week did create a library toolkit. It's not finished yet. The rough draft was sent out this week. So hopefully by next week, it'll be finalized, and then I can forward that to everyone, and I'll be forwarding it to the libraries as well. Okay, now, Giovanna, you have something to say?
No, I just wanted to hear it. Does anybody have anything planned already for May?
So we have the Change the Script band coming to Greenwich on Wednesday, May 12th from 11 to 1. They're going to be, we actually got some spaces blocked off for Greenwich Avenue, which is huge. And hopefully it'll be a nice day. And usually there's a lot of foot traffic on Greenwich Avenue. So we'll have tables out in front of the van with prevention information and obviously all the Change the Script information. And We did order lock boxes for medication storage, so we're going to be giving those out with information cards about locking up your meds and information about our coalition.
That same day on Greenwich Ave?
Yes, yeah.
Awesome.
Fairfield Cares. Ryan's driving and she may go off the road if I say this wrong, but we.
No, please.
I know that there's the Tree of Hope is going to be lit in the town, on the town green. We have to pick a day, but we're hoping to get a little, photo op with some coalition members there when it's lit. There is, I guess Drug Take Back Day is the end of the other. Shoot, now I'm having a senior moment. Was something else important I was going to say.
We have a day.
I know. Okay. Well, I'll let you add that in 1 second. We also are working with two of the independent pharmacies, Switzer's and Black Rock Turnpike Pharmacy or Black Rock Pharmacy, to change the script on their medication bags when they hand out medication through the pharmacies. So that's something that I think.
And that order's gone in, Wendy.
Oh, good. Oh, great. So if there's anything else, my fellow Fairfield people jump in.
Well, we've got, so the van is coming on May 12th. And the youth committee, and it'll be at the Sherman Green, so right in the middle of town. And the youth committee is organizing a wellness fair for primarily middle school students, but also for elementary school students. So they're planning on having like 5 or 6 different stations for fun ways of dealing with stress and anxiety. So we're looking forward to that.
And that's in the school?
No, that'll be at the town green after school. On May.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
If you need anything, please let us know on goodies. We have the hub, like this putty. I don't like it, sensory issues, but lots of kids like it.
Like
That's
it.
great too.
And just thinking about it, I get, we have tons of those. They're not on our swag page because I forgot about it, but for everyone, we do now have a swag page where you're able to order some of the things that we do have, and we would be able to either drop it off in person or mail it depending on the situation and the availability, but just know you can request that through the website as well. And we do have new resource guides. Did everyone see them? Honest opinion, you like them?
I just had a conversation with the people at Norwalk Public Schools that Giovanna will sound so familiar to you, where they're all like, what? There are resource guides anywhere? And I'm like, well, we've sent you thousands over the years and now they're redesigned, and we've got it on the wet links on the website and have sent them out
They're
a
still the
zillion
same
times.
colors.
Yeah, I know. So it's the constant, struggle to make sure people know the stuff's there.
Yes. And if you do, and if anyone is doing events that would like to have those, we would be able to print them out. You can request that and how many on our website, and we will get those to you as well. Anyone else?
So I have a list of things that are going to happen in May, but I will send you dates, Daniela, but we'll do a QPR in English and in Spanish during NPW. Angelina Maselli, our clinical director, is doing a mental health first aid. That I have a date for. That's May 21st from 9 to 2. We're making the flyer for that now. You guys probably know that the issue with mental health first aid is now that when you do now you're only allowed to do the kind of online option, and it's a hybrid where the person does a couple of hours of pre-work on their own and then they come to a single session. Angelina likes the training a lot. She feels like when they revamped it, it's really a better training, but they're only allowing you to train 10 people at a time. So in terms of like advertising it and like making an impact on the population, I'm like, I don't know what we do with that. we are going to show If They Had Known, which, you know, New Canaan is showing now. We're going to have the Turning Point CT guys do their distress tolerance workshop online. And Norwalk had their first community fair a few weeks ago, and now there's a monthly one. So the date in May would be, I think, the third Saturday. And we're debating whether it'll be on the Norwalk Town Green or possibly at the mall. Which could be cool. It was so nice to be at a community fair, you guys, to be outside and see people.
I got my, I got my first dose last Wednesday, and I couldn't believe, I couldn't believe, one, I was nervous as all hell, like just complete nervous wreck. But it was so nice to see people, and I was talking to people, and I'm like, oh, I miss this so much. I was talking to anybody, even the person that was waiting 15 minutes. I was like, hey, what are you here for? You know, like, it was just so nice to talk to somebody in person.
Just wanted to say one more thing. When I had our youth coalition meeting last week or the week before, one of the things that the kids came up with for May's Mental Health Month is they're going to do Instagram takeover, or take over our Instagram account. They're the Greenwich Together Youth Coalition. Not quite sure what that means. They know more than I do about this kind of thing, but basically one of them will take it over once a week or once every couple of days, and sort of get share some personal information, and then hopefully like a wellness tip or something like that, a stress relieving tip. So
Awesome. Great.
I have a question. So the change the script van that was just mentioned, I just quickly looked. I mean, this is something that I'm hearing about for the first time. So this is, some of this information, which is why these meetings are so amazing. Is that available to LPCs that don't receive federal dollars? Can you just, it looks like you can just go on and request the van.
Yes. We sent out an email a couple of weeks. No, I lied. Not a couple of weeks ago. Like maybe a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
I must have missed that one. I mean, I try to keep on top of.
Daniela can tell you a little bit more about it.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
all right. I can also, I'm looking right now under drugfreect.org, and it's right there. So
Yes,
Okay,
you can still
thank you.
request it. New Canaan actually emailed me last week or the week before asking if it was still available. And they did tell me that it was a first come, first serve kind of thing. But if you fill out everything online, they'll get back to you. So.
Okay. All right, thank you.
yeah, and last year we had them come outside of Prevention Week. Like, you don't just, they'll come anytime. They came to a farmer's market in Greenwich, and it was really well received. So I think they're available throughout the year.
Yes, they are.
Great, thanks.
Anyone else?
GBAP will be doing a number of things. We just haven't tied down any dates yet. We have our next BUC meeting on Tuesday. So I'll send you what we come up with after that.
Great, thank you. Okay, moving on to the next topic here. I wanted to give a chance to the SOAR grantees to have a moment of saying how things are doing. Do they need help? Do you need help with anything? Have any questions?
Hi, it's Tammy. I'll jump in. So we are kind of using the SOAR grant in two ways. One is to support a relatively, what would I say, new old project. It's something, actually Margaret remembers this from a while back, but we've reinvigorated it. It's something called a community care team, C2. And it is a team that we got reinvigorated. Our health department is taking the lead. and we're part of that team to reduce opioid overdose deaths. So it was it was like that task force deliverable for SOAR. And our health department last year was one of 5 communities across the country that got CDC funding to actually work on overdose death prevention. And from that, we developed a roadmap for the C2 team. And so this funding is helping to support implementation of the roadmap using data. So the team continues to meet, looking at our local data. We've been able to, because that's really been difficult for us as a community, like how to share that data, who can share what and how. But we've actually been able to develop like hotspot maps in our community where overdoses are happening. James, and one way that we're going to support it with some other funds is we're going to get a banner about the medication drop box. So we put that up at our vaccine clinics as a reminder to everybody of how to because there's a lot of foot traffic there, how to where and how to use the medication drop box. But we're kind of excited about this because it's a way to really use data and have impact and reduce overdose deaths. I should say I missed a critical piece. So it's a collaboration between public health and public safety, and we sort of define ourselves in this role as kind of falling under the public health side, because the project that the health department was funded for was to really move forward a toolkit on how you can bring these 2 disciplines together to have impact in the community.
It's awesome.
I don't know if Rainey wants to jump in on this with me, but because I know she's in the car, but Fairfield, Norwalk, and Westport co-planned the SOR mini grant. And so we're trying to have everything that we do be collaborative so that it kind of reach the most people. So we're actually, some of the money is really going to be for just online social media campaigns. We're doing QPR Narcans, but we're specifically trying to target certain groups like in Westport, the Downtown Merchants Association, in Norwalk, the mall staff, the interfaith councils. We're showing If They Had Known. We are also, like when Tammy mentioned the banner about the Dropbox, we're creating a series of feather banners that are going to have like a variety of different messages, right? So it's like those old Burma shave things where like if you're going down the street and you pass 5 signs, each one builds on the other one. So they'll have a bunch of prevention related messages, and then we're going to buy multiples of all of them. So each town has their own set, but when we need to have a ton of them, we borrow all 3 towns' sets of the banners. So I can't remember what else. Rainey, do you remember what else?
No.
But I will say that, Giovanna, I'm sure you've probably already given this feedback to Carol or whatever, but in Norwalk, one of the groups that I was talking to was Irma, because we've given them fentanyl test strips in the past. And, they were like, we don't have enough budget for those. We can't keep those in stock enough. If we're trying to prevent overdose deaths, we would really like fentanyl test strips. And in this particular mini grant, it specifically said you couldn't do that. So if they ever want to rethink that, that would be great.
Well, the good news is that SAMHSA just came out, yesterday or 2 days ago with something about utilizing prevention dollars for fentanyl test strips. Yay.
Okay.
So we already reached out to Demas and said, because SAMHSA said, yes, will Demas allow us to do that, since several SOAR applications had those fentanyl test strips in there. And unfortunately, we had to ask you all to remove them because per Demas, we couldn't do that. So next week, I have an RBHAO meeting with Demas, and they already put that on the agenda.
That's great.
So if not this round of the SOAR, maybe hopefully the next round we'll be able to use the prevention dollars for it.
Okay, great. I'm just going to jump to the last item on the agenda since a few of you already mentioned some things. I just want to remind you that April 24th is DEA Drug Take Back Day. I have received some flyers already, but if your town is doing anything, please send it our way so we can put it in our newsletter and share it on social media.
Yes, we'll be compiling everyone's information and sending it out through our newsletter and social media, sharing your accounts as well.
Okay.
Do you
now-
want those flyers, even though I keep tagging the hub in pretty much all of our posts? Do you still want flyers, or can you just take them from the tags?
We will need the PDF or the JPEG. So I don't know. Can I save? I guess I don't know if I can save it from the post and it'd be a JPEG.
From Facebook, you can definitely save the image as a JPEG, but I can send you stuff
And
separately.
that's fine. I will download it that way. Not a problem. It just sometimes I don't always, I know other people too on the team don't always go on social media, and I at least on the hub's account. So then I'm late to the game, and Katie, who does the marketing and social media, sometimes doesn't share, and it can get very confusing at times.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the last item on the agenda, which is focus group questions for the priority report. We're gonna, I don't know how many of us there are, but most likely just break out into 2 breakout rooms and answer some questions from the priority report. We'd really just like your feedback and your honest opinion with everything. Just to give you guys a better understanding of why we do this, I wanted to just share this with you so you can see why we collect this data, how we collect this data, and to let you guys know that it's actually really more for you, so you can read through everything at the end and kind of understand what's going on in the region and how you can move forward in helping change that if necessary for the future. Sorry. Okay. So I took these slides directly from DEMIS and their PowerPoint that they had shared. So just kind of to break it down, it'll be focusing on substance use, problem gambling, mental health. That is also including suicide. We've also added some other questions ourselves, just kind of focusing on COVID as well, because we know that that has changed a lot for a lot of things this year. And it's used more to set priorities among populations who need behavioral health prevention, treatment and recovery services, to inform a comprehensive strategic plan, to increase general community awareness of all these topics, support leveraging of funding, and responding to public data needs. Stop sharing my screen. Okay. I think, Giovanna, what do you think? Should we do 4 and 4?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Should we do 4 people in each breakout room?
Distractions. We had 6. Up to you. Whatever you want, boss.
Okay. Well, I'm wondering if it's even necessary to do 2 breakout rooms. What do
All
you
right,
think?
well, let's do it this way then.
We start this
we
way?
can- Yeah,
Okay.
well, we can just have it one group. We were gonna split it up, but that's okay. Yeah. It'd be nice too, because then everyone can hear what people's thoughts are and things like that, and kind of focus on that. As you guys are all aware, every 2 years we do this report, and well, this is our second time ever doing this report. So these are lessons that we learned the last time, and continue to learn more and more about this whole process. And of course, Margaret had to jump ship. She was like, "Oh, priority report year? No, thank you."
I'm out of here. I got to do those for years before the hub too. So I've put in at a certain point when you're like, oh, the recommendations never change and Demas never does anything.
Yeah, I know. So we're back in this process, and the good thing is that this is our first focus group with you all before we start reaching out to the different sectors in our region.
So these are the questions I'm sharing. Caitlin is going to be taking notes. So just to kind of start things off. Oh.
Sorry, Danielle. Sorry,
go ahead.
everybody. I'm going to log onto my computer then so I can better take the notes. So I'll be right back if you want to get started.
Okay, first question. How appropriate are available services to meet the needs of in the areas of, we'll start with substance use, prevention, treatment, and recovery? You can answer, appropriate, adequate, somewhat, neutral, less than, not at all, you're not sure. So more in the terms of accessibility, quality, frequency, duration of these services.
So Daniela, we should take those one by one, right? Like you want us to kind of use that scale and just say for substance use prevention services are.
Yes.
Right, yeah, and then we do treatment and then recovery. So
I'm
I
so
would
sorry.
say.
And then
Go, Genevieve.
I apologize.
Okay.
You would like us to answer these in the chat?
Just a conversation out loud.
Oh,
Just your thoughts.
So when we think about the appropriateness of the substance use in our region in prevention, how do you feel it's being assessed? The quality of the services, the frequency, the duration, in your opinion? What have you been seeing in the services? Are they available? Do we have enough money in prevention to do the work that we are doing?
I think we should, I would think it should be less than, or like, is that the option, less than appropriate? Because of, I think the things to highlight are inequity in funding, which is based on population size, right? But, it's like the towns that get federal grants or larger grants can do more and the other towns can't. And there's no permanent structure for, I would say that the biggest comment or recommendation would be that the state should be really trying to work toward a permanent structure for prevention, where like we embed a prevention coordinator in every town's Department of Health or Human Services Bureau, so that, when funding goes away or a grant wraps up, there's still someone for it with historical, institutional memory and a role to keep coordinating things until the next grant comes along. Giovanna, he has so much hair. Look at him. What a cutie.
It's unbelievable. Look at that hair. Oh my God. So cute. But
I
I would
think-
agree with everything Margaret just said.
Yeah, he is adorable, Giovanna. I like your comment, Margaret, about the institutional memory. Because as people move on and shift, you know, it's how do you keep going without losing all that history? That's something that has come up with Weston recently. So, I mean, I think it's all informational for us. I mean, none of us has a clinical background. So this is all information. We do this because we are just, you know, for whatever reason, we believe strongly in the importance of getting the information and the programs out to kids and families. So from my vantage point, it's all appropriate for substance use, all of it, every action, every item there. So.
Yeah, I think that we, you know, even with legislative session going on, constantly asking for more money, right? More dollars to prevention. We don't have enough money. Folks that are on the ground are really struggling, right? You're trying to make ends meet, but then also bring education and awareness to your community. And we don't have enough funds. We have, and it's fantastic that we still have a couple of coalitions that are volunteer based, right? All doing the work, but then coalitions should also have someone that is full time to be able to get the work done and move that needle. And how do we do that when it's not, it's focused, prevention is focused in the town, but there's not a lot of work being done, so to speak, right? Because there's not that person that's solely focused on that.
Or that has the training to do that, or
the training, yes.
You know, or funding or any of that.
And I think it's true what Margaret was saying, the communities that don't have the DFC funding, it's a real struggle, you know, because the dollars aren't there to commit to a full-time person. And then once that DFC funding goes away, what's the sustainability plan? So.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would agree as well, because again, for BUC, we're in our last year and a half, and we cannot reapply. We will have had 10 years. And so we're trying to set up now what's called an ambassador's youth program, so that there's something that we can say or hope to leave for the community, a mark, because we have no idea who will be the next group to apply for the funding, or if there will, you know, you just don't know. And so, yeah, there needs to be something that when things go away, that in the meantime, there's someone or some agency that is holding, so that people can continue to get that information or the help they need.
So I think, you know, these questions are supposed to generate not just like the you know, it's appropriate or it's not appropriate, but like specific recommendations. So I think, you know, Daniela, I think it would be highlighting that there should be a move toward creating a person that is a permanent person in every town. And that's probably a partnership between DMIS and DOH. Another recommendation around substance use prevention is, you know, for towns like Weston that's here, like if you're going to hand out $2,000 to a town and go, this is all you got for the year to prevent everything, then it would be really nice if the LPC grant could be used literally just for a coordinator. I mean, that's still not a lot of money, but like there's that, you know, you can't spend more than like $500 or whatever it is on, right? Am I remembering correctly? You can't spend more than $500 on a person to do something. but that is literally the best investment of the money that you could probably make in some cases, right? If there's no one else to do it. And the other thing I think that I would like to see recommended is, the constant, like the thing about the mental health promotion should be braided into the substance use prevention, not siloing the stuff.
And I think that was the intention, right? When they decided to merge the RACs and our the regional mental health boards, but it's, as a social worker, it's been a struggle, right? Where behavioral health has that term has been around for, I don't know, several years now, but people still don't understand what it really means. And it's about that integration of mental health and substance use being together. It shouldn't be, you shouldn't have agencies that are working on one mental health and another agency working on substance use. It should all be really talked about in unison.
And that's another funding thing, right? It's because basically the state has no funding for mental health promotion, just like none, just like they've never had anything for suicide work until they just got that $3 million grant this year. So everything the LPCs does and all mental health and substance use, anything, well, there's no funding for mental health, right? Everything the LPCs does comes through the federal block grant for substance use prevention. And a couple of years ago, Demas got dinged by the feds who came and did an evaluation, because I was in one of the focus groups, and they were like, they came back, it took them 2 years to provide feedback on their evaluation. And then they said, it looks like the state of Connecticut may have been allowing LPCs to use substance use prevention money to occasionally do work related to mental health, and you cannot do that. So that's the history of that. But I think in terms of recommendations, just saying, building mental health deliverables into the grants and just saying as long as they're tied to would be helpful.
So who is it that gets this kind of feedback? I mean, how do you get this directly to the people who can make the decisions to, and I'm sorry if I missed that in the beginning, and if Daniela said that at the beginning before she shared the questions to begin with. But how do you get this information? I mean, all of this is great feedback, but how do you get this to the people who are actually making the decisions on integrating that? And is COVID going to change any of this thinking? I mean, there's such a growing awareness now over the past year plus of mental health issues, and everything is still off kilter because of the variants and now spring break. And so there are some, it depends what your viewpoint is, but I guess my question is, how does this information get to the people who can actually do something about it?
So we do compile all of your of these answers, right? And we formulate it in our priority report, as well as having a recommendations, a regional recommendation and a statewide recommendation list of things. The commissioner of Demas does read the reports, and so does Carol Meredith, who is the director of prevention unit. Now, they do read them, but as Margaret insinuated, we haven't seen much of them doing anything around the recommendations and making the change. And that is something that I think we will be putting into the report as well this year, just to let them know that the recommendations that we asked 2 years ago are still almost the same as this year, on top of all of the things that are coming up due to COVID.
And then, but usually there are legislators that get the report, and
Yes.
Sonia, in conversations with legislators around some of this, and at the annual meeting, there's, of the RBH, there are a lot of different stakeholders who hear it. So sometimes they have places to play in, but yeah.
And after, once we finalize the report, we also do create a PowerPoint just to talk about the findings. Not only will we do it with you guys as the LPCs, but we do it with the CAC members, Catchment Area Council members. We will meet with legislators and NAMI and all of the different sectors in our stakeholders in our region to just really talk about it. And in hopes, we present to the CHIPs, CCTs, community care teams. So in hopes that with these recommendations that we do have, that they would align their goals with the recommendations as well to try to bridge that gap.
So, and I don't know if we're jumping yet to the next, to the mental health, but for treatment and suicide prevention treatment too, I think I'm just seeing in my other role at Kids in Crisis, when I help supervise the teen talk counselors in the schools, the wait lists for getting students, particularly adolescents, into treatment is getting out of hand. You know, there are students who are being referred to the ER, and 211 is being called the crisis team. They're going to the ER either with the crisis team or with their families, and they're being discharged and with no treatment plan or being put on a wait list for treatment, and they have suicidal ideation. And so it's kind of scary. And I think COVID has ramped up this whole thing, isolation, hybrid learning, remote learning, all of that. But we're just seeing that there's just not enough treatment available to deal with all the issues that are coming up. So it's definitely, not at all, I think, for the appropriateness of available services. And I think,
and Ellen, that's specifically, like, that's particularly teen mental health and suicidality, right?
Yep. That's what we're seeing. And I'm sure it's happening for adults too, but we're seeing it for teens.
I think because on the adult side, the telehealth has definitely helped some people, get help that weren't otherwise connected to treatment. I don't know. What are you guys hearing? Like, I feel like the gaps that everyone just keeps talking about the teen, everything Ellen said, but related to teens and young adults. And I think we all know there's more suicidality among adults and there's more anxiety. So actually, if you guys haven't seen it, there's a study that came out a couple months, maybe less than a couple months ago, so that the prevalence of anxiety and depression in adults is double what it normally is. It was 41% versus 20%. And the suicidal ideation among adults was also double what it normally is. But among young adults, it was like 3.5 times the amount. So that's a comment that the issue is there, but I am not hearing about adults who can't get into treatment. I'm only hearing about kids. So I guess that's my question to you guys.
I mean, I just think anecdotally, in some ways, for adults, it's easier. The telehealth has made it easier for them and more accessible, where I think for teens, that's not the case. Like, I don't think they love the telehealth piece of it. However, I just also don't think it's available to them. So whether or not they engage in treatment is not the issue.
Right.
It's whether it's even available for them to try to engage in treatment. So I haven't heard about adults as much. But.
And that's something that maybe we can ask in other focus groups that we know folks work directly with adults and see what they're finding. So we can definitely add that or ask that question in future focus groups.
So I'm looking at recovery as one of the questions here on this list, and I just want to comment. I mean, all the recovery support groups for mental health and substance, and individuals and families, like, they all went online. They're all available. Very few are in person, except for some of the 12-step programs. And at Positive Directions, with Turning Point CT, with our smart recovery groups, people have dropped out like flies, right? People just don't want to be in an online support group anymore. And the people that are with their own personal experience that I've talked to who are still feeling really supported by support groups are the people who are going to live groups. So in a sense, I would say there are a lot of groups. I mean, things are available. I don't think people are. So maybe it's just not the right fit because people don't want to be online anymore. But you have to have like a safety and comfort level with going live. So I don't think it's a lack. I think it's not the right fit right now. I don't know what to do about that.
Anything on problem gambling? I know, Margaret, your agency works with problem gambling services. Anything on that?
Literally, I was talking to Bob recently. I mean, it doesn't sound like there's been any bump. I haven't heard, but it's a question for like the clinical director, Angelina, right? Nothing has surfaced as so important to be like, oh my God, we're getting all these referrals for this. It just seems like business as usual.
All right, we can go to the next question if no one else has comments on the first.
What prevention program, strategy, or policy would you like to most see accomplished related to substance use?
So I would jump in there right away. And this is something I've been talking to legislators about because, if marijuana is going to get legalized and it may not happen this year, but whatever, it's going to happen at some point. Doesn't matter. New York legalized. We really need a major investment in a marijuana awareness campaign aimed at parents that is really, really well designed, not by Demas, like by professional campaign development people. And there's a ton of folks, working on this stuff right now, right? So like Connecticut Sam is doing stuff and Paul Reinhardt has a group and Kirsten from Teapot is really coordinating this big marijuana awareness development thing through the Let's Prevention campaign that a lot of us are involved in. But this is a recommendation where like Demas could take the lead in just saying, we are going to really set aside some money and invest in this. And it's too late to say it's ahead of the game, but like, let's fund some real work around that because here's a turning point in our society related to marijuana. And so what are we going to do about it? Also, in terms of policy, we should all be, and the state should be really pushing for whatever marijuana revenue does end up coming in to have just a really significant allocation to substance use prevention and mental health and substance use treatment. So the new iteration of the governor's bill that got dealt with this week now is suggesting 15% for prevention, and before there wasn't basically anything, but that's not enough, right? And it should be identified as like what's going to be there for all the marijuana induced psychosis and what's going to be there for the whatever. So I think those are things that we should put in writing and everyone should be talking about, especially with their legislators.
And
Anyone
I think
else?
that money always seems to get diverted to something else, even if it's, allocated to prevention. It's somehow that when the budget needs balancing, they seem to take that money. So how do you set a policy around that so that it really can't be touched for anything but prevention?
And if you saw the first version of the governor's bill for marijuana was just, oh, we're going to be getting all this revenue for all this stuff, and they were going to give $200,000 to Demas for prevention in year one, and then after that, it was going to be $1 million a year, which is like, nothing, and nothing for treatment. But we know the treatment issues that are going to come up.
Anything else for substance use?
I just wanted to chime in. I think the marketing, there needs to be an overall marketing strategy addressing marketing of these substances, whether it's flavored tobacco or it's marijuana or it's the packaging of edibles. It's what our kids are seeing. And so I really do think there ought to be some regulation or frankly, just elimination of kids being able to visualize and to, the direct marketing. We were talking about in our DFC work group the other day, stores have CBD plastered very prominently when they've got CBD products, and the concern is, that they are positioning themselves to be retailers of THC. And we don't want to see get your grass here and neon lights. I would prefer that there weren't any billboards in the state of Connecticut promoting marijuana or cannabis. But it's not just the marijuana. It's really, the sort of the regulation of the products that we know are going to be enticing to our kids to try to use. Just should be addressed, I think, in a broad fashion. Because we know the more often kids see advertisements, the more likely they're to try, right? That's what the whole point of advertisements is to get you to buy.
They're not even, well, first of all, I did see a billboard already. I saw some advertisement on I-95 about cannabis, number one. Yes, I did. And in Fairfield County. So number two, one of the important things that's not being said or shared is that this term recreational needs to be a term that's I don't know to say banned, dismissed, because what it gives is that this is a fun drug or this is a fun, so it gives that kind of a image that this is not harmful. And to the child that's 25 years and under, scientifically, we know that that's not true. So there's a lot of things that needs to happen, and yet as a coalition, we can't afford to wait. So it becomes one of those things like you gotta just get ahead of the curve while we're waiting for whatever the state is going to do, because it is inevitable. If they don't get it this year, they won't get it. But there's just no way that Connecticut is gonna allow every state around them to have marijuana legal and they not do it, with fear of that people will go somewhere else to purchase it. And even though it is federally illegal to take it across state. So I don't know, we just have a lot of work to do and we can't wait to do it.
And I don't know if anybody else saw from the Truth Initiative, there's some new products that are synthetic nicotine. So they're not nicotine derived from tobacco leaves, but they're made in a lab. And they're making those in flavors now. And because they're not tobacco related, they're not under the regulations from the FDA. And so it's, again, it goes back to, I think, what Kathy was saying, that there needs to be sort of broad policy around this, that it doesn't matter whether it's synthetic or tobacco or whatever, especially for vaping and these nicotine products, they're still addictive and they should still be under the same regulations, but apparently they're not. So.
Moving on to mental health.
Funding to do mental health promotion.
I'm just gonna, the priority report's gonna say 2021 funding.
Right.
Stamp it right there.
But I think it's worth highlighting in there that there isn't any funding for mental health promotion specifically, right? And you know, because I think legislators don't know that, right? When you talk to legislators about funding, they're just like, this is how much money Demas gets. And it's like, you have to say to them that none of that's for promotion and only this one grant is for suicide. And you know what? Actually, here's a prevention related strategy, I guess, here really. So just in terms of what we were talking about with marijuana and everything else. So legislators don't know that the prevention people who have federal money can't talk to them about stuff like the marijuana bill, right? So a lot of legislators are like, oh, the prevention community is apparently okay with this because they didn't hear at the, you know, at the public hearings, they didn't have like a zillion prevention coalitions coming and going, this is a problem. And then when I talk to legislators, like in my own time as a person, blah, 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 you know, they're like, oh, we didn't hear that much. We were surprised there wasn't more. So I think a strategy would be to make sure that they actually know that there are a whole bunch of people out there who might want to be talking to them about this stuff, who feel constrained, right? So that they know there's a side they may not be hearing as much or as loudly. So that's on the substance use side.
And I think,
This is Bryony.
oh, go ahead, Bryony.
Yeah, in terms of mental health and what we were saying earlier, it's great when we advertise things like 211 and, you know, all these numbers, but if these numbers then can't deliver, it backfires, because then people talk, oh, well, I called 211, but they weren't helpful. I called this number, but it's useless. And that information spreads faster than true information. So I think that needs to be added as well. It's, you know, we're doing our best to get information out there, but then if the people behind all these numbers can't deliver and you know, either answer the phone in a timely manner, get people into treatment, then the reputation is so quickly deteriorated that all the work up front is then for naught.
And last week, was it last week, we had the lunch and learn with the action line with Sarah, and that was brought up how, you know, 211, their reputation is not the greatest, right? And when somebody addressed it and gave an example, she welcomes feedback, and I think that's what we need to start doing, right? Is instead of just complaining about it, we need to take action and go to the person or whoever, you know, climb that ladder to say, hey, this is unacceptable. I had somebody in Monroe reach out, a social worker, to me and talked about her experience with one of the numbers that we, one of the Soundview Warm Line hotline, and she had a horrible experience. And I said, you know, of course I apologize, even though I shouldn't, but I then had her call one of the executive directors that run that line. And then I called just to let them know who I am and that I promote that, right? The hub promotes it, and we believe that if that's the number that we need to call, that everyone should be respectable and not feel like they can't call, right? Because they don't want to get an attitude or whatever, right? So I think that's our action, right? Is to not take it.
It's actually a very good idea, simply because I know someone personally who have been reaching out, who's in crisis, have been reaching out to 211 to no avail, and felt like the only option that they had was to have themselves checked into a hospital because they can get no help from 211.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I would take that information, and if you're the person to take it and bring it to 211 and to the executive director, so be it, because that's unacceptable.
that C2 group that Tammy was talking about before, our EMS administrator was saying that they're frustrated with the mental health piece because they'll bring someone who's having a crisis, drop them off at the hospital, and then they see 20 minutes later they were just discharged with no services because they're 20 deep in the ER. So that's the one thing I would say they would probably be a good resource to listen to on the mental health piece. They've been providing us with a lot of information where we think, oh, this is a great idea, and then they bring that realistic component to it.
Mhm. And that issue's been going on for so long, right? Of the hospitals just turfing people back out. But now if we have this increased need, I mean, what we're getting into here is question 3, right? Like levels of treatment. But
Yes.
I think what it points to though is, if we have just this crazy level of need now where like half of the people need support, there's just no way the system would ever accommodate that, right? So we, on the prevention / promotion side, I think we have to kind of look at it and go, okay, does every town, what can we do short of getting everyone into treatment? Like if we have this crazy amount of suicidality, right? What are we going to do about that? So it's like, does everyone know about the crisis text line and a warm line and 211 and the National Lifeline? Do they all know like 4 places to call, not just one? Also, does everyone know about a support group they can drop into? Like, are there support groups? Do we just like go, you can call this person to talk? Also, are we training everybody that feels like their mental health is at least stable to try to do some kind of outreach or check it? It's like, how many things can we do? That's kind of why when I was working with the Turning Point CT guys this year, I'm like, anytime you can offer any kind of drop-in event, and now that you have this distress tolerance workshop, these are like free things you can offer to help each other, because we basically have to say people have to depend on each other and not on the treatment system as much as possible, right? So, learn your coping skills, get trained in coping skills, create social or support activities for people to join as much as possible, and then push them.
Mm-hmm. Then the only other thing I was going to say about maybe it's policy, we are seeing that there's going to be some funding related through COVID avenues, I guess, and maybe around mental health funding. But it sort of reminds me of like when Sandy Hook happened, and then there was all this funding for mental health, and then it goes away. That's the first thing that's cut. So I don't know if there's some way to say, this needs to be long-term funding and more than just a year or 2 after COVID is gone, because we're going to see the impact for many years, I believe.
Yeah. Definitely. And since we already touched on a little bit about the treatment levels of care, anyone else have input on that? Ellen, you talked a little bit about telehealth, right? And that was a long time coming, right? As social workers, we were waiting for telehealth to be implemented and be part of statute and things like that. And even though it has helped, right? Especially for me doing private practice in the evening, it has helped because I was able to not only still continue working with my clients that I was seeing in person, I was able to then to maximize my time and add a couple of other clients to my caseload. And for me, I thought, there's of course pros and cons to telehealth, and now I'm starting to see my clients. In the beginning, my clients were all about it, right? They were showing up on time, fantastic. And now I feel like they have this Zoom fatigue that everybody else has, that Margaret even was talking about. So, so we definitely see a change in how telehealth is. I'm curious to hear what other people are thoughts are on that as well.
Get going.
I know some folks in our region talked about smart devices and how people don't have smart devices and they are not able to have telehealth services, or people don't have Wi-Fi, right? There's no hotspots. So we're still hearing a lot of that still in our region, and that's unfortunate.
Anything else on that?
So Giovanna, is the question, are we experiencing, the sense that people out there are getting tired of the whole Zoom thing?
Well, I know I am.
Yes.
But I can't speak for anybody else. But it's about the treatment levels of care, right? Do you feel that they are available, unavailable? Are they provided adequately? What are you hearing?
I think, when it comes to the treatment side of things, I think people like the personal, right? Initially it was great. Telehealth, I think, it was a way of keeping consistency and continuity, but then you lose that personal connection. And so I think the enthusiasm wanes after a while. So that's my feeling about it, at least.
I can say that in our clinic, the clinicians want to come back to the office, a lot of them for at least part-time because they've all been vaccinated. And so they've been talking to the clients, and most clients do want to continue teletherapy because it's just, it's easier with childcare and transportation and all of that. And it's less time out of your day. So we've found that a lot of people really want to stay with teletherapy. And then there are some who just really want the in-person, like Kathy's talking about. But my guess is that that's kind of probably happening everywhere. So I think, it's really important for the legislation to continue to allow telehealth on an ongoing basis, allow phone-only telehealth on an ongoing basis, and make sure that the reimbursements are the same, whether, the clinician's time should be reimbursed without it mattering where the service is delivered.
I agree.
But clearly there are wait lists everywhere for especially adolescent and young adults, so that, just outpatient is overwhelmed. And we already talked about the hospital stuff. You're going to do this with CAC members, right?
Yes.
Okay, because I've been hearing stuff about the treatment system from some of them, and they can tell you.
What adjunct services and support services, recovery services are most needed to assist persons with substance use issues?
And just so you know, the examples that we have here are just to kind of highlight some things. We don't need to talk about those, but if that's something that, jogs your memory that you want to talk about, we can.
So these are words that are kind of in here, but peer respite, which has been something we've been advocating for literally years. Apparently DEMAS did come up with a possible proposal this year to try to create a peer respite in each region of the state. That a peer run respite would address the thing that Ina was talking about, where the only option is to go to the hospital because you're suicidal and you can't talk to anyone, and 211 can't get you anywhere. So it's new if DEMAS is actually finally getting serious about that, but that would require some funding. So I think, again, just continuing advocacy around that would really help with the people who are in real severe crisis, mental health crisis, and hospitalization is often very traumatizing. And if you're not going to get services in the hospital, find a respite for them. And then peer support services are incredibly invaluable, and in a system that's so overloaded, that's a really great thing, that relatively cheap and affordable, that can really support recovery, relapse prevention, wellness maintenance. So we still have more recovery coaches that are employed in the state than recovery support specialists. So that means it's more available for substance use than for mental health. The statewide task force is meeting, or work group is meeting. There's legislation. You know, like, so it's, I think, just advocating and going, those services should be beefed up, or the jobs, the position should be beefed up for peer support specialists on the mental health side. And, you know, funding to agencies who employ peers, to employ peers.
Anyone else, even on mental health, suicide, problem gambling? What would you say is the greatest strength and asset to the substance use prevention, treatment, and recovery service system?
That there's a focus on recovery, and that the treatment system, like, increasingly offers, you know, multiple pathways to recovery. You know, even if it's even for, like, you know, opioid use disorder, it's not just, you know, you get methadone or you don't have any other options. So I think that's.
I guess there was a time when people used to look down upon harm reduction, but harm reduction now, if you had to say what are some of the greatest strengths, the fact that you, even if a person is not ready, but you can help them. I guess that's a good way to say it, that you can help them be less harmful or to be safer in what they're doing, always leading them to hopefully recovery, that those methods are there. So when you're talking about fentanyl strips, and when you're talking about needle exchange, when you're talking about those types of methods, they would have to be looked at as a strength, although a lot of people don't seem to think so.
Suicide prevention, treatment, postvention, and recovery support system.
You know, I think the fact that we now have the regional suicide advisory boards is really helpful. I mean, that was a level of coordination, or it's not officially coordination, right? But that was a level of connection and collaboration that never existed before. So that helps. Postvention, you know, you guys know, in our region, like, all the towns got trained and every town's been working on a postvention plan or whatever. It'd be great if that, so those are assets. That's something that's an asset in our region, that everyone's aware of that, trained on that, and aware and working on it. That would be something that would be really great if, like, the state could just produce, like, a really well laid out, you know, postvention plan based on all the things that people have been working on in the communities, and go, this one is so close to done that you barely need to edit it.
And lastly, problem gambling.
Well, they've got funding. I think that's the asset. They have funding.
Yeah, they definitely do have some funding, separate funding.
Are there any particular subpopulations, for example, veterans, LGBTQ, Latinos, that aren't being adequately served by the system? The substance use service system, mental health, suicide, gambling?
So the LGBTQ population always, virtually always, when you look at the data, are one of the highest risk groups for different mental illnesses and suicidal ideation and use of virtually every substance. Not just kids, but adults, right? But especially kids. So, we all know that, and everyone tries to work with everybody, but I think that you don't see a lot of targeted efforts to work with that population. High focus centers in Norwalk, which is a IOP and PHP in particular middle school, but also high school, they have an LGBTQ track in their treatment program, which is, I think, really interesting. And, it's tough, right? Because if you try to do messaging for that population, you're not trying to send the message like you're broken because you're gay, right? But it's just worth talking about that. Like, we don't have specialized materials and campaigns and outreach and programs other than there are support groups here and there are GLSAs in schools, but there's not really behavioral health specialized stuff for that population. And there is for veterans, right? And then of course, Latinos are underserved because there aren't enough Spanish speaking anybody.
Anyone else want to comment?
Ellen, you guys have, just on the LGBTQ side, I mean, Kids in Crisis has the Lighthouse group. Have you guys done anything differently in terms of treatment or outreach on the prevention side to that population?
Trying to think. The outreach is really from the Lighthouse, doing, a lot of outreach to try to just get people to know more about that group and to know it's available. And they have been able to meet in person through the pandemic because they got space at the Avon Theater in Stamford, and they have a large, basement area. And so they were able to do that, which I think was so helpful for the kids because they were not wanting to go online to do that support group. And in terms of just privacy at home, many of their parents don't know they're out, or they just didn't have the setup at home to be able to do that. So the in-person was so important. But I know that Silver Hill has a track, not a track, but they're much more sensitive to that when kids have to go inpatient, and if they're transitioning or if they are, gender nonconforming or whatever it is, they really work with them around where they'll be placed in roommate situations and that kind of thing. So, but yeah.
What are the emerging prevention, treatment, or recovery issues that you are seeing or hearing about for substance use issues, mental health, suicide, problem gambling?
Counterfeit drugs that we talked about, I know at the hub last year. And I don't know who saw the Bridgeport, Norwalk cops just confiscated a ton of marijuana products that were packaged as Skittles and candies and stuff like that. I don't know if you guys saw those photos. So that. Giovanna, did someone tell me, Melissa, are you guys working on a counterfeit drugs campaign?
Yes, I was gonna talk about it, but contract is not signed yet, so I don't want to say anything too much, but the RBHAOs are working on potentially a statewide counterfeit drug campaign.
Awesome.
Yes, and TPOD is involved in a couple of other coalitions. Excuse me. welcome to my world. And a couple of other LPCs are statewide are involved as well, because they had an interest and also stated something in their sewer application about it. So it was interesting because I was really focused on doing a newsletter about counterfeit drugs, especially after the therapist lost her 16-year-old son purchasing Xanax, what he thought was Xanax on Snapchat. So that's how that whole conversation came about. But we're really focused on currently what that message is going to be to parents and to middle-aged youth, young adults, middle-aged to young adults. So that's really exciting, but I'll let you know a little bit more once that contract is signed and we have a better a message.
That's great.
Finally, you know, the RBHAOs are all working together and pooling money like we are supposed to. So that's really exciting. And it'll be nice because it's kind of similar to the mention prevention, right? And getting that out. They did a good job with the vaping and the alcohol retailer. And now the state, I just found this out last week when I received the email, the state now has the alcohol mention prevention campaign as well. Connecticut Clearinghouse and Demas worked with the gentleman that the marketing firm out of Milford who did mention prevention, and you saw that email that you all are able to use for your towns. So it's nice. We should be doing that. The same message is going to go a long way as long as we continue that same message.
Are there
Okay,
opportunities?
I'm sorry. I know we have a couple of more minutes before our meeting ends, but if we can just get through these questions, that would be wonderful. Just a couple more.
Yes, appreciate you staying. Thank you. Are there opportunities for the DEMIS service system that aren't being taken advantage of? This could be technology, integration, partnerships.
Hi, it's Riney here. I think that this mention prevention campaign is the first time really that makes it a bit easier for local prevention councils to take some of the material and plug it into their own things. And what I would really like to see long-term is just a lot of, like, you know, what in other industries called white labeling, that there is, let's say, the substance information, and it's, you know, it's pretty much the same for everybody, that websites and information is kind of preset, and local prevention councils just plug in their logo and put it on their own sites, instead of everybody recreating the wheel and spending all this time and money on things that everybody is doing, and it's the same for everybody. And there's only a few local things that are different. So I would like to see that happen at the state level.
I remember when we first created the hub and we were like writing all these recommendations, have the clearinghouse develop digital toolkits that we can all use and disseminate. So here it finally is, but more starting at the local level, and then Demas kind of going, oh, is that what you're talking about? So keep it up. But in terms of Demas integration, you know, I don't know, like, it would be great from the prevention side if Demas was better connected to the State Department of Education, like on the official level at the top, and there was more coordination and communication there, and things that would help at the local level, where, you know, if everybody knew from the state down that prevention work was coordinated through these two agencies, that would be good. And also working with DOH, right, with health departments. Prevention campaigns could be developed and coordinated through both. because look, like DOH does all this opioid stuff, you know, on their own. And then like, sometimes you find out they're doing something in your town and nobody knew they were doing it on the prevention side, right?
Mm. I'm going to have to jump off, but I'm looking at question number 10. And just quickly, I'll tell you that we just finished a youth survey through the schools in Greenwich, both public and private. We don't have all the results tabulated yet, but we definitely had less response because I think of the hybrid schedule and some kids not being in school. And, you know, definitely, I think enough of a response, but less than what we had 3 years ago. But surprisingly, we did not have any barriers with the school administrations or Board of Ed and all of that. So we were lucky in that regard.
Ellen, did you guys do the A and B?
Tell me what you're.
Did you do the search and assets and behaviors survey, or what did you do?
We did, but then we also added some of our own questions. We worked with Darien and added some mental health questions to it as well, based on the feedback we got 3 years ago from the survey that was done. So yes, so we did use the asset survey and behavior, but we also added some extra questions as well. All right, I gotta go. I'm sorry, guys. Take care. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Bye.
Nice to see you.
You too.
I know we've already talked a little bit about question 11, so I'm going to jump to 12 just for the sake of time. What do you think the hub needs to do to promote health equity and or address health disparities in our region for the subgroups you are identifying?
So, you know, there should be more representation of people who are brown and Black, even at the prevention coalition level, and LGBTQ, and then those voices would then inform everything else. And so I think that would also, right, at every level. So that's the hub, but that's the LPCs, that, right? It's that kind of thing. I'm, you know, Triangle seems to be going through yet another leadership transition, and that like things aren't coming back, like they bounce back and nobody responds. But that would be a group that would be great, like whoever finally comes in as the new ET, to kind of just from the beginning form a partnership and involve them in this work. That's a thought. Going back, Daniela, to number 10 on the survey, Siobhan and I were talking this morning, and so I was like, oh, here's a recommendation to put in around surveys, something I was talking about with Kristen McCarthy-Vahey. But I think if you can put in some kind of recommendation around having the state just work toward, because it would need funding, but like work toward just having a state youth risky behavior survey, or the whatever, in all communities, or the Connecticut School Health Survey, right? So there's, you know, a woman who does from an epidemiologist from DPH who does a school health survey in selected communities. If we could just work towards saying this is a thing that happens in all towns, same survey instrument, maybe we need to add some stuff to it, but every 2 years, and it's built in and it's funded, then all the LPCs wouldn't have to spend like their entire year gathering data and then being like, now I have no time to do anything with it. And, you know, good for Greenwich for not having any issues, but like in Norwalk and Westport, we're having huge issues in terms of implementing the survey. And, you know, we're using a different survey. Our 3 towns that PD works in are all using the same survey. We're all going to have the same drug prevention data, but then like we're collecting other data for other reasons. And, you know, we needed something in Spanish, like A and B is not in Spanish. Like it should just, so Vermont is an example to list, and it's one of the Midwestern states. It's literally something that their DMIS just funds and does. So we should, I think if we recommended that, that would make everyone's lives easier.
Yeah. Any final comments or anything?
I'm just curious, where are you going that you're in a car all this time?
Oh, no, I'm no longer in the car, but I've got to do my report from this morning. So
Okay.
I'm
Because
not,
I'm like, wow, are you going on a trip? Nobody goes on trips anymore. It's exciting.
no, I actually saw a client in person for the first time in forever. And
nice.
it was down in Stamford, and then I came back.
Gotcha.
Well, thank you. Thank you for hanging in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, good luck with the process.
Don't worry, Margaret. I'm finding a way to get you still involved. Don't you worry.
I talked a lot. You got my ideas.
Yes, you did. I appreciate that. Thank you.
All
righty. Well, you guys have a great weekend. Thank you for coming. James, always good to see you. Take care.
Bye,
Have a good
everyone.
weekend.
Thank you.
Give Mateo a tickle from me.
Oh, I will. He's eating soup now.